Welcome back to Hour 3 on a Friday. Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, Bill Bush on early break. We have a very special guest here in the 8 o'clock hour. The man who's probably, definitely is probably the busiest man in college football. That is Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports. Good morning, Ross. Do you ever slow down, like with reporting? Does it ever slow down for you ever?
These days, not really. There's always something to report about or write about or make calls about. You could work 24/7 with how college athletics is right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Ross, Bill Bush, you're at ground zero, obviously with the Big Ten and SEC meeting down in New Orleans. Can you just paint a picture of what it's like? It's like you're in the hotel. Obviously, Sankey's there, Petiti's there. Where are you? Kind of just tell us, like, what's it like down there?
Yeah, they met. They're all done. They wrapped up Wednesday. Basically, the SEC coaches and the SEC ADs got in town Sunday night, and they met jointly on Monday. The coaches then left, and the SEC ADs met by themselves on Tuesday, and then the Big Ten ADs joined them Wednesday for the an AD joint meeting. And all of those meetings took place in the Windsor Court, which is one of the nicest hotels in New Orleans, just along the Mississippi River. I was on the media. There's a very, very small group of us. There's 4 or 5 of us. And we were on the second floor, and they were all on the 23rd floor. Mm-hmm. So that kind of gives you an idea of the hierarchy of media in SEC and Big Ten administrators. That's the separation, is at 21 floors. But we got to see them as they were coming down, and then the commissioners did come in and meet with the media in a room on the second floor and answer some questions for about a half an hour.
Outstanding.
That's how it's covered. So when you look at the SEC Big Ten, the way I look at this, Ross, is they're trying to put together a big puzzle. When the final puzzle's done, what do you think the top 2 objectives are for the Big Ten and the SEC, the most powerful conferences? What are they trying to hammer home in the final when it's all said and done?
Number 1, make money. Number 2, make more money. That's what it's all about right now, more than ever. It's been about the financial piece. When you have a 20 to 25 to eventually a $30+ million hole in your budget where you're going to pay players, you got to find money. It's a lot easier, in a lot of ways, it's a lot easier to reduce expenses, but in a way, it's something that I think a lot of athletic directors don't really want to do. So the goal is to generate more revenue, and there's certainly many ways to do that through sponsorship, new sponsorships, and all those things that you've seen right now, naming rights, increase in ticket sales and all that, student fees. But the other way to do it is to create new games, first of all, and create scheduling agreements, for instance, between the 2 leagues, to create a 9th SEC conference game, to create play-in games at the end of the year, potentially, that could work toward an automatic, multiple automatic qualifier playoff format. So the goal really is to make more money. And I think administrators for so long were scared to say that openly. And now we're starting to see them say that, because it really is more than ever a business. If you're paying the labor, you're in a business. And college athletics forever wasn't paying the labor. They were giving the labor tuition, which is great. But when you're signing TV deals of $1+ billion, $1 billion plus, which the Big Ten did, and you're paying your coaches $10 million, the courts of America say you must share more with the athletes. And that will be happening very soon directly from the schools. And so it is more than it's ever been a business.
So, Ross, we're talking about TV inventory partially, and what we've seen a lot of talk about is an SEC Big Ten crossover scheduling. Is it? Do you feel like this is inevitable? Are we going to? And then how soon would it occur?
To me, it is very much inevitable. It will almost certainly happen. Timing, I think, is a little more delayed. There's really, I would say, three main pieces to this SEC Big Ten playoff kind of conversation.
Yes.
And number one is a new playoff format that they discussed and I wrote about last weekend, which is 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and SEC each, 2 automatic qualifiers for the ACC and Big 12, 1 for the Group of 5, and 1 at large. And that's a 14-team model they've discussed. There's also a 16-team model with 3 at larges. But there's these guaranteed access spots for the power conferences and 1 for the Group of 5. And so that's an important piece to having or convincing the SEC to go to 9 conference games. One of the big hangups in the SEC going to 9 conference games is that they feared more losses that would cost them playoff trips. Well, if you have guaranteed playoff access, there's no more fear in that happening. And in order the Big Ten already plays 9 conference games, right? So it's a big deal that the SEC would go to 9. And then you had the third piece of this, which is the 2 conferences striking some kind of annual scheduling agreement, where an SEC and Big Ten team, will probably just play in a rotation, maybe a home and home rotation every year. So, if you're looking at it as a scheduling breakdown, you'd have 9 conference games. 1, if you're an SEC team, they have 9 conference games, 1 against the Big Ten, potentially 2 bye games. But some of these SEC teams have ACC rivals that they play every year too. So you could have 9 conference games, 1 Big Ten, 1 ACC, 1 bye game. In general, we will see more big games. And that, again, behind all of that is a revenue driver.
Ross, you hear all the conversation now because you talked about, raising ticket prices or student taxes or student fees. That just doesn't seem to move the needle much. And you hear all the time about potential corporate ownership, private equity coming in. Where do you think that's at?
Well, I think private equity is for the programs that are probably a little desperate mode for financials. I wouldn't say the Big Ten and SEC are at that point. They have enough CFP money coming in. They have enough TV money. You got to remember the SEC and Big Ten combined to average about, from their TV deal, somewhere around 70 to 75 million right now each school. The SEC's in the 50s. The Big Ten is. And that's going to be eventually, like, in the next 3 years, that'll be kind of the average, 75 million or so. And the ACC and Big 12 will be, probably around 40, between 40 and 50.
Yeah.
So the gap is huge there. And that's where you get those 2 leagues probably looking more at a different financial model that includes private equity.
Gotcha.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I just was thinking as you were talking about coaches, and I don't know if you've talked to SEC coaches about this, but what you were just laying out, where an SEC team would play a non-conference game against the Big Ten, maybe have an ACC rival, and then plus the SEC schedule. Do some coaches cringe at that openly, or do they say, if we have 4 automatic bids, we're okay with it? I'd still think that would be a lot for a given team.
Well, I think that it helps having guaranteed access.
Yeah.
But I do still think that coaches don't really want that. I think the SEC coaches have made it clear for probably years now. This debate has been going on for as many as 6 years in the SEC to play a 9th conference game. Right. And the coaches have made it quite clear in the league they don't want that. Most of them don't want to do that. And but and ADs too. There's probably at one point there was probably half or more than half of the conference that was against that, and there's still plenty of schools that are against a ninth conference game. However, as somebody recently told me, and as I talked about opening up this segment, is money is so important right now that some of this other stuff, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're looking for inventory, and what we're talking about is the Big Ten and SEC have squared off in 5 regular season games in the last 3 seasons. The average viewership for those games was 6 million. I mean, that's a huge number. That's what these guys in suits are looking at. They're looking at the fact that Michigan and Bama, when they played the college football playoff semi last season, it drew 28 million viewers. That's like Super Bowl numbers, I think. I mean, 28 million viewers for a college football game. Isn't that what those guys are basically looking at? How can we get these teams matched up more because we know what the viewership is going to be?
That's right. The big matchups drive higher viewership numbers.
Money.
The higher viewership numbers lead to more sponsorship and advertising dollars for the TV networks, which in turn lead to an increase in TV network payment to the schools and conferences.
It's a puzzle.
It all kind of works that way. That's kind of how it all works. And that is the driving force behind all this, is to get viewership as high as possible. And, we've seen that's what big matchups do.
Well, I know myself, Ross, I'd even text you about this. All we care about is seeing good games. Nobody really wants to see bad games. You want to watch. You have to have the fans still, right? I mean, the fans are still part of this. And like I said, when you turn the TV on, you want to see great matchups. You don't turn the TV on. Luckily, every week there's usually 6 or 7 of them that you can watch. So is that part of it also like that? We've got to be able to keep the fans also engaged in this.
Yeah, for sure. And another part of this is people wonder all the time about conference realignment and why the SEC expanded, and specifically, I guess more so why Texas, decided that they wanted to leave the Big 12. It all goes back to matchups. It all goes back to, creating bigger matchups. And the Texas AD, which I speak a lot about the Texas move, because it really started a lot of this. I think it kind of started, it was a ripple effect. It started much of what we saw in conference realignment and all this stuff. The Texas athletic director, Chris Del Conte, I've written about this a lot, is he basically said, we left mainly because our home schedule stunk in the Big 12. And the season ticket sales and the attendance and the TV deal wasn't what it could have been. So we left to go get better opponents. And so that's what happened. And I think the same thing's the case for USC and UCLA and all these other schools, Oregon and Washington as well, that moved conferences. It's always to seek bigger matchups. That's the whole goal, because that drives revenue.
So Texas passed on bringing in Iowa State, and they brought Georgia in. That the TV number is a little different there. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, I'm just curious in terms of this is the big story you've had this whole week, Ross. What's next right now in the landscape? What has your eye next in terms of potential news coming up?
Well, I think you'll have the finalization at some point of the SEC or the CFP, the format change. Next week, the CFP commissioners. So there's the 10 FBS conferences, and each commissioner, all the 10 commissioners, and Notre Dame's athletic director will meet in Dallas. And I'll be there next Tuesday as they discuss what the future format might look like. So that's kind of the next big thing coming up. And of course, hanging over all this is obviously the House case and the revenue sharing that's coming to college athletics. And it seems like we're pretty, we're moving closer and closer to, having that be finalized here. April 7th is the final hearing with the judge.
All right.
All right. Well, he's Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports. Ross, excellent stuff. Thank you for the time again.
Appreciate it, Ross. Thank
and
you very much.
We will chat with you down the road.
I got to see y'all.